Everybody, welcome to the Roundtable, Season 1, Episode 9. My name is Jim Timmer. I'm the Athletic Director at Calvin University, along with my co-host, Ryan Souders, who's on the screen with me right now. And, of course, Jeff Febus will be around, and he is off camera, but we'll be chiming in as we go through the night. Tonight is kind of a special night. We haven't done this yet, but we're dedicating it all to kind of one sport, and that's hockey night. So you see Coach Souders with a black jersey or sweater, as they call it, and I've got the Calvin Knights one, actually with my name on the back. There you go. And when Jeff joins us later, I'm sure he'll be representing the Red Wings. But good to be back. Ryan, the first segment, we always just chat a little bit about sports world, and our first segment is always brought to you by Meyer. They're always our kickoff lead sponsor here, a proud sponsor of Calvin Athletics since 2012. Ryan, you got the Blackhawks on. Are you excited for hockey night on the podcast? And other than that, how are things going?
Yeah, I mean, we tried, couldn't get Doc Emmerich on the show tonight, but it is hockey night in Grand Rapids anyway. I will be the first to tell you I am a diehard Fairweather Blackhawks fan. Not to be confused with a bandwagon fan. I'm not cheering for anyone else, but if the Blackhawks are winning, I'm riding the bandwagon. If they're not, it's kind of college basketball season, NBA. There's other things for me. I hate to say it. I'm getting it out now before we get Jared and Darin and Coach Petrusma on later, but I got to come clean. How about yourself?
Well, my first memories of some hockey stuff were actually some Calvin hockey when I was little, when I was younger, going over to what now is Eagle Ice Center, and they were kind of playing behind the chicken wire and netting. It was crazy. The Eagle Ice Center certainly changed, but I also saw in the Grand Rapids Owls were big with Johnny Flesh, and I know minor league hockey in Grand Rapids. Of course, we have the Griffins, but it is a sport that you love playoff time. It's I was always a basketball guy, so never had really kind of time because I was always playing myself. But if you live in the hockey's always big, and at Calvin hockey has had a long tradition, and we'll get into that a little bit throughout the show. But before we get to more hockey, we got some topics I want to throw around, and Coach Petrusma will be joining us shortly. But my first topics are all right. So we got through a season. Now we'll swim this weekend at our place, but we got through women's track, men's track, indoor. The basketball championships are done. That's the air quote. Interesting, right? Put a pretty good fight down at Trine, and our women for the second year in a row had a really tough time at Hope. Hope's really good in women's basketball. Women lost a tough one in swimming, battled to the end, and came up a little short there. And of course, our indoor track, some great individual performances. I'm sure Coach Adi and the group would like to see a little higher finish as Trine took the men and Hope took the women. Just your thoughts, Ryan, on the MIAA. We made it through a season, which almost to a year ago, I didn't know when we were ever going to do that again.
It's true, man. I tell you what, the one thing I'll say is, you put, championships in air quotes. I'm going to put season in air quotes, right? We had some of our own issues. Other schools were having some issues of COVID. And so I have this kind of a great tension of incredible pride in our winter student athletes in particular, those respective coaches, the athletic department staff, carrying out testing and getting it done to get through a finish line, right? I think to finish a race of sorts is a huge victory in light of kind of the world circumstances and many other conferences doing nothing. On the other hand, you hate to maybe see some other schools celebrating, right? It's a Roundtable podcast, so I'm going to be honest. I think, I think hopefully this. I know, having talked to some of our coaches, as you mentioned, proud of some individual efforts to be sure, but I think there's some excitement and kind of some hunger to, even though they've just finished, really get back on the track to really improve and try and maybe do some things heading into next winter.
Yeah, the word that always comes to mind for me is muted, right? You're satisfied that you finished the race, but it doesn't feel like what would be a normal season, and that's to be expected. The weird part about this, you're going into your season, you're going to be playing Notre Dame here before our next podcast, and I know that you're like, okay, that's really cool, but the thing is, as soon as they drop the puck or tip the ball off or kick it off in soccer, you're competitive, right? And,
Totally.
and you're like, let's go. And then after the game, you're like, yeah, but we didn't practice our top five together because of COVID, or we're playing in mass, and so you're in this constant tension. And I'm not taking anything away from anyone's championships or pro college or whatever. I think there's reason to celebrate all those things, but it's weird because every year you have excuses. This year they're built in all the way around, and we've built our program. No excuses. We'll play anytime, anywhere. So it's just weird. We don't want to make those, but just muted joy, muted fun, but better than nothing. And that's a terrible spot to be on.
Yeah, just odd circumstances, right? It's one thing. Injuries are part of it. But what's been weird about this for Calvin and other schools is you have players who might get contact traced who are completely healthy, and they're ineligible for contests. So that's weird. We've lost to, class conflicts, family conflicts, injuries, but we've had athletes that are just sitting at home or in their dorm room, healthy and ready to go. So I think that's part of the tension. I think muted's a good one. What's next?
I can't wait for our freshmen to experience an Oak Calvin basketball game or a big home basketball game with the MIAA Swim Championships, which is always one of my favorite events. The energy and the business. And it was missing something. We'll move on. Just a couple of hockey-related topics. Topic number 2, I'm calling this in the penalty box. One of the unique things about hockey and some others is they will, for different infractions, you have to sit out. And sometimes you're happy to see somebody go in the penalty box. And you have to put somebody in the penalty box. As you, Ryan, from the world sports penalty box.
Man, Jim, I'm going abstract here, and this is the most easiest, obvious answer in the world. I am putting COVID-19 in the penalty box, man. Put it in there, give it a major, throw it out, get it out, man. That's the number one thing I'm throwing in. Right now, and we'll have Jeff on later, but I'm throwing my Arsenal Gunners in the penalty. I mean, they suck.
You're starting to throw. Keep going.
I'll second that.
Oh my gosh! I'll tell you what. First 15 minutes of our practice today, I would have thrown about 90% of our squad in the penalty box. I mean,
you actually were wishing there was a penalty box in soccer at that point.
Man, it was brutal. So how about you, Jim? Anyone? I mean, mine's all kind of abstract, generic. Who are you throwing in your box right now?
I'm throwing an NBA All-Star game. 170, 150. With guys pulling up from half court. I've seen more competitive games on our intramural for sure, right? I'm amazed at the skill, right? You pull up a 3, and I'm like, is this where we're headed in sport? And I don't want to get all philosophical about it, but NBA All-Star game in the penalty box. After I thought they made some improvements with the team LeBron, whether it's competitive at the quarters. So they're the penalty. I give you another one that's in the penalty box. Binge watching anything. I can't find anything I want to watch. I go through Hulu, Discovery Plus, Disney Plus. I'm done with that. I'm just literally done with hey, let's watch 9 episodes of a show.
Your tips, and my streaming is at times become like my refrigerator. You go back to it expecting something different.
Yeah.
You open it and you're like, nope, same. I got nothing, same stuff, and you just kind of close it back up.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend. Since we put the streaming in the penalty box, that people maybe binge watch all 9 episodes of the podcast, the Roundtable. So I will recommend that to folks if they haven't, just to catch up with us. So
that's good. Yeah.
All right, we're moving on. Those are some great ones. We got Arsenal in there. We have the NBA All-Star Game. We have binge watching, and most of Calvin's men's soccer at least a point today. All right, topic number 3 before we move on to 5 minutes with Febus is a thing. Ryan and I have different sayings that we kind of go through. This one, I don't think we have one. It's called "How's it going?" Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who at the moment, sarcasm is drips from my mouth every once in a while. Can you imagine that? I came about that honestly from my father. But sometimes when I see, like, a car in a snowbank because they slid off the road, I in my mind I go, how's it going for you? How's that driving going for you? And so when I think about the world of sports or Calvin University and kind of humor, I think, how's that going for you? You got any of those for me, Ryan? Any of the things that you observed over the last couple of weeks where you just going for you?
Yeah, so I got 2 different. One might get me in, actually both might get me in some trouble, but I guess that's real proof of how's it going for you. The first is, I know this is like kind of an ever-going theme in the background, but like having young kids in your house, like nobody sleeps. It's never quiet. It's always a mess. And I want to look at my wife and say, how's this going for us? How's it going for us? Okay. The other one, I have, I've done some game administration for some games. I've been, I've live streaming games, and this may really get me in some trouble, but that's nothing new. I want to say to the MIAA with their mask policy, how's that going for you? Because I'm watching more chin straps than, I can pull off here with a homeless beard. I mean, it's just kids aren't wearing them. They're putting them under their nose. They're putting them under their chin. Yep. You got coaches who are pulling them down to make points in matches. And I just want to say, how's it going for you? And numbers are, maybe they're changing, maybe they're not. I don't want to get myself in more trouble than I have to. But you're no excuses, zero tolerance policy with masks. How's that going for you?
It's funny because I'm not going to throw the MIAA. I'll throw, you see it on the sidelines of the NFL. You see it on the sidelines of the NBA. It is a really tough thing to do. You're breaking long time habits. And it is. You feel like for the breathing, people who.
Like the day you were born habits.
Exactly. And so while we laugh on it, we're not making light of the what we're trying to do, and it allowed us to play sports. It's difficult, and the consensus around it still is really tough. But yeah, that's one.
I'll say this is
that,
one
that always works.
So I've been coaching at Calvin for 9 years, and we've had kind of informal best practices conversations on lots of things, right? Recruiting, road trips, meals, uniforms, all that kind of stuff. I never thought we'd have a best practices masks for your players. So there's a coaching thread of like, hey, what masks do you recommend? And yet here we are, right?
Yeah, here we are. Well, I when I think about how's that going for you, again, I think of I have one, fake crowd noise, right? So I see it on every, like, I think it was cool the very first time, like, hey, they're piping in music or crowd noise. That feels like it. And then you watch it, you're like, well, that doesn't work. Fake, the cardboard cutouts. How's it going for you?
The cardboard cutouts of like dogs.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We hope this is all going past us. We hope everybody out there who's listening to the show, all different ages, that vaccine comes around. Everybody stays healthy. We have a little fun with it. We put it in the context of sport. We're about a week from a year now. I think March 13 is when we came in and had the infamous coaches meeting where. So you're saying we're not going on spring break? That's what I'm saying. and just crazy. So
where it was an hour-long meeting, and by the end of the meeting was completely invalid.
Invalid. We'll have to talk about that someday when we review that. All right, hey, we're on to our next segment. It's going to call 5 Minutes with Febus, 5 to 10 minutes with Febus. Our sponsors, In On Time. One of our proud sponsors, Calvin Athletics, matching your requirements and your needs with our fleet and warehouse, gives you the flexibility you're looking for in your logistics provider. Unmatched service and reliability makes In On Time your complete logistics solution. Jeff, part of our three-headed monster here, he's got his Red Wing stuff on. He's going to do a 5 minutes with Febus, and then right on to our interview with head coach Mike Petrusma. Jeff, this topic doesn't have much of a theme other than a hockey night. Tell us a little bit about hockey, Calvin Hockey 2004.
Well, first off,
good evening.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. This is the Steve Yzerman Red Wings jersey. I have not watched a single Red Wings game this year. I got a little disillusioned this summer when they were a team that was in the lottery, and a playoff team, according to the NHL rules, of course, ends up getting the top pick. But that's hockey, and that's the Red Wings for you. They're not that great, but in Steve Yzerman, we trust as the general manager. So enough of that.
All right.
Getting on to Calvin hockey, though, and we wanted to kind of bring things up to the present. You were talking about going to games as a kid, and my dad took me to a handful of Calvin games at the Eagles Ice Center. And, of course, you had mentioned the Grand Rapids Owls. I remember going to games when it was the old Grand Rapids Blades at the old Stadium Arena, on the northwest side of town. So those were some of my first memories. But, Calvin hockey, my understanding, started in the earlier 70s, late 60s, and it was kind of a semi-varsity, semi-club program. And, when I was a Calvin student from 88 to 92, it was a varsity program. It was part of the varsity athletics program. The teams that they played were primarily non-varsity teams, the Lawrence Techs of the world, and, a few of the others. I remember broadcasting games for the old Calvin Video Network. That was always a lot of fun. We'd go to the Kentwood Ice Arena. It'd sit up on top of this box there. It was nice and cold and chilly. But, I remember Dan Heemstra, whose sister was an All-American softball player for us. And I believe she's a doctor now in Canada. But Dan was a big, strapping centerman, and he was good. I mean, he would just push people off like they were flies and go up and down the ice. And then, so some of the other guys, Bill Brewer was a quick, shifty little forward. I remember him. I remember the goalies, Rich DeWild. And there was another goalie, Cam. I want to say it was Cam Lawson. So, Cam, if you're out there listening and I got your last name wrong, I apologize. I remember he had red hair, but he was another pretty solid goalie there in the late 80s, early 90s. And Rich DeWild was a short little guy, but he was very quick, and he was good in goal. And of course, then there was the Loomises that played, and that was a rich tradition of Loomis family that played Calvin hockey. And of course, my very first Calvin student employee, Rodney Coy, can't forget him. He played in the early 90s. He lived in the old A-frame house right off of Burton Street, kind of near the Knollcrest Apartments. So it was all hockey guys. So you'd call over there, and they had the little Hockey Night in Canada audio theme for their answering machine. So that was always fun. Rodney was part of a team in 1993 that went to nationals and took third at the ACHA. And Mike may end up correcting me on this. I believe it actually was at the Division II level. Eventually, we ended up moving to the D3 level at the ACHA level. But the early 90s, there were some really good players and teams, and Mike was a part of that group. He was the head coach. Jim Dart was an All-American. That was kind of that 92 to 95 era. And then as we got into the 2000s, things really started perking up. We had some local talent, and we had some Canadian talent. Max Siplinga was a tremendous athlete. In fact, the interesting thing, he was part of three cousins. So some people might remember Aaron Weirs, who was a MIAA MVP in baseball.
Baseball.
Tremendous baseball player. And he could have played hoops too. And then Max was his cousin, and Max was a tremendous soccer player. as well as hockey, and decided to focus strictly on hockey. And I'm trying to remember the third cousin. We ran a story in the Spark on those three, and I want to say it was a female athlete who was the cousin. So maybe that'll come to me as we go along. But Max was a high-flying forward along with Nick Verkyle, was out of Whitby, Ontario, and that was quite a 1-2 punch up front. And then all sorts of other players on that team that were terrific. I mean, Dan Wieneman, Isaac Hoagland, Dan DeCorn. The DeCorn brothers were a big part of that team. Elijah DeGroat. He was the tournament MVP on a national championship team. Jason Kuhl was a local guy at Tri-Unity Christian High School. He was a key player. Gregory Clark, if I can spit that out, was a goaltender. Freshman Brian Banstra was out of British Columbia, Terrace, British Columbia. Those were all tremendous players. And in 2004, the team at the ACHA Division III level produced a 29-1 season. Wow. Went to the 16-team national tournament in Phoenix, Arizona, and they played the national tournament at the practice ice facility of the Phoenix Coyotes. And I just brought up the old story here. It was the Alltel Ice Den. I'm not sure if that's still the name of it, but Calvin won 3 games in the tournament, defeated actually 4 games. Actually, they defeated University of Richmond 5-0 on a Thursday morning. Then later that same night, so 2 wins in the same day, they defeated South Dakota State 8-3. And then I remember this one, perhaps the biggest one. Of course, the national championship is always the biggest one, but this was maybe the toughest one. They defeated second-seeded and host Arizona State in the national semifinal 5-2 after trailing 1-0 early on. And then in the national championship final on a Saturday night, they defeated the University of Georgia's ACHA D3 team 5-0. So completed that 29-1 season, a national title. And that was just tremendous. And, the other memory I kind of have of that group, I think it was the following year. There was a couple of years where we had a really big rivalry, and obviously still do. But Calvin and Hope were right at the very top, competing for national honors at the D3 level. So we played each other a couple of times at Van Andel Arena downtown in Grand Rapids, kind of part of a doubleheader with the Grand Rapids Griffins. So we played the early game, and then the Griffins would be the nightcap. So I think it was 2005. We had a real knockdown, drag them out game. And I think it was Nick Verkyle ended up getting the game-winning goal with maybe 10, 15 seconds left in the game to win a 1-goal thriller over Hope at Van Andel Arena. It was a big crowd there, too. So that was a lot of fun. We had one hockey program for a number of years. It was at the D3 level. 2017, that winter going into the spring, the team had really been building, went all the way to the ACHA National Championship final. And I think it was the year before they actually played in the national tournament, finished in the top 4, played right in the West Michigan area down in Moline at the ice facility down there. It's escaping my mind, but I went down to watch the games. There we go. But 2017, we went all the way to the national championship game and lost to our nearby rival miles away, Aquinas College, in that national championship final. So that was quite an accomplishment with that team. And right around that time, we announced the program. So we kept a Division III program, but we made that jump to ACHA Division I. And I remember you, Jim, saying after you went to your first D1 game, what a jump it was in the caliber and just quality of hockey. And last year the team qualified for its first ever berth in the ACHA D1 tournament. Unfortunately, couldn't go because of the pandemic. The tournament ended up being canceled, but they had a tremendous season, won 17 games. We were prepped to go to the national. Of course, the D3 program has kind of rebooted it, and it's really starting to get its legs back underneath it. So, two solid, hockey programs here, and a tradition-rich hockey program. So to have 2 teams, it's really been a blessing and, a point of pride and excitement, I think, for this Calvin Athletics program.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, that's a great summary. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit with Mike and some of the guys as we're going to interview a couple of the D1 guys that have kind of helped build that D1 program. They were in that transition a little bit that you just talked about. But No, I think that the Calvin hockey alumni are strong. Mike Petrusma has been such a driving force behind that. Of course, you got to give a shout out to Nancy Meyer. She's been a long time advocate. She's had a great love and passion for hockey, and it's really walked side by side through some of these changes. It's been an exciting time. So, hey, hopefully that Mike is going to join us. We'll catch up here with Mike Petrusma.
Okay, we're joined in this coaching interview by Kelvin head hockey coach Mike Petrusma, and this interview is brought to you by Virtanen Heating and Cooling. Virtanen Heating and Cooling has served West Michigan for 54 years. They've been a leading heating and cooling contractor throughout West Michigan and the best choice for your home. They install quality systems and they back them up with guarantees to protect your investment. Contact Virtanen Heating and Cooling for a free estimate today at www.virtanen.com. And again, pleased to be joined by Kelvin head hockey coach Mike Petrusma. And Coach, we were kind of going back through the history of Calvin hockey, and we'll get into that a little bit. But let's just talk a little bit first and foremost about your journey to Calvin, Calvin College back in the day. Now we're Calvin University, but I know that you were a Calvin student, not the first in your family to do so, and you played a handful of sports and that type of thing. Just how did you get connected with Calvin growing up?
Well, my father, who served in the Second World War for the Netherlands, he's actually stationed in Indonesia. He had a 2-year degree, and Canada was advertising for teachers, and so my mom and him immigrated over. He got a teaching job, and then soon thereafter, the province of Ontario was requiring a 4-year degree to be a teacher. So we as a family, basically from 1963-64 to 1971-72, came here for 8 summers. Oh, my dad completed his BA in education. And so that was the start of it. And I was actually at the old campus. And so myself and my 2 older brothers took swimming and tennis lessons at Martin Luther King Park because we could walk there. So that started it. Then we as a family, I have a younger sister too, who we all attended Calvin. And basically we always knew that that's where we'd go to school. So we have a legacy in the Petrusma family of attending Calvin, and Calvin has served our family well.
So you at Calvin itself, you did play in some sports, soccer actually, and you were the women's soccer coach here for a 7-8 year run there from the late 80s up through 1994. Just document a little bit your involvement as a student athlete back in the day.
Well, definitely no All-American performances from me. I was what you would call a role player. I always knew I wanted to coach, so I really concentrated on that while I was participating in athletics at Calvin. It was always a passion of mine. Even I can remember all the way back to 9th grade. That was always going to be something that I wanted to do. And so I took my experiences there at Calvin and really kind of cherished the conversations and whatnot that I had with people on staff at that time, and a lot of wonderful mentors there.
So one of those mentors was Dr. Marv Zeidema, 36-year head coach, I guess. He wasn't 36 years old, but he coached the program for 36 years, which is unbelievable. And you played underneath him. I think you had a brother that played soccer for him. And, he was very influential as both a professor and as a coach on numerous individuals that have gone on to be coaches themselves. What kind of an impact did he have on you? How did he mentor you and just kind of shape you for what you've developed into now?
Yeah, both my older brothers played soccer at Calvin as well, and Marv was there for me as a rookie coach. I started coaching at a pretty young age, and so to have somebody like that to lean on with all of his years of wisdom and advice really helped impact me as to my coaching journey. He really emphasized relationships with players. He really emphasized culture, Christian culture within your teams. He really was a wonderful mentor for me. I always cherish the trips that we took together to soccer coaches conventions over the country back in the day, and just being able to spend time with him was very, very near and dear to my heart.
So your first head coaching gig, I think, at Calvin was women's soccer, and you're coaching, the female gender, and that's always a little bit different. What did you learn? What did you learn from that? I mean, you had a lot of success, and actually a lot of the success that the team had in the mid 90s and later 90s was, set up by yourself through the recruiting efforts, provided the foundation, the Tara Dykes and, those type of folks. But what did you learn about coaching women's soccer?
Well, I tell everybody this every chance I get. They made me a better coach. I have some wonderful stories, which I won't get into great detail about, but I find with female athletes inherently will work hard. They really strive to please, and they want to be great teammates. And that's not to say the male side of it, that they don't have those characteristics as well. It's really emphasized on that I found with coaching the women at Calvin, and that the thing that always amazed me with the women athletes that I had, they could come up with a cheer and a dance step or two in a moment's notice, and it was really, really fun to watch them, how they all able to get on the same page. And I think what I really learned there was just the inherent competitiveness and the willingness to be a part of a team was really accentuated for me in coaching the women at Calvin.
Yeah. Well, during that time, early 90s, you started coaching Calvin's men's hockey team. And I was talking a little bit historically. Calvin actually was a varsity program at one point there in the 80s, although they were playing non-varsity opponents, and then made that transition to the ACHA. And I think it was 92 or 93 that you actually coached a team that went all the way to, I think, the national semifinals, ACHA Division II. So can you talk a little bit about that transition of, Calvin hockey, well, you moving in as a coach, but also how it kind of transitioned into kind of this different varsity program into the ACHA program, and how you guys evolved as a program at that point?
Well, when I was offered the position to coach, it was difficult sometimes to keep the guys' eye on the prize, so to speak, because there really wasn't that end point. They played, 25 games, but then there wasn't really a league at that point. So that was one of the first things we did, was establish the Michigan Collegiate Hockey Conference, which Calvin is a charter member of. Then we also, and I actually talked to Marv about this, that we needed an end point to be able to really provide an experience, a true hockey experience here at Calvin. And so with the footprint of NCAA D3 hockey, there's way too many budget constraints to be able to really move towards a full NCAA D3 schedule. And so with the proximity of schools here in Michigan and everybody jumping on the ACHA bandwagon, I really felt that was going to give us a better avenue for the hockey experience here. And so that's when we made the switch, and I think it was the right move at that time for the hockey program.
So that run, I think it was 1993 that you guys went to the national semis. Jim Dart was the All-American on that team, and a number of other key players. What was that season like? You won a ton of games, maybe only lost a couple. That had to be a lot of fun back then. What kind of memories come to mind?
Yeah, it was a blast, actually, because it was only a couple years removed from when we made the switch from the NCAA to the ACHA, and Mark Veenstra, Steve Wiersma, Steve Parks, and once again start naming names. I know I'm going to forget some guys, but there's a lot of terrific hockey players and terrific students in that group. Really bonded well together as a team, and really took the opportunity So we qualified for nationals. Actually, we were ranked number 1 in the country for most of that year, and then made the trip to Albany, New York, where we had a lot of parents come there, and it really kind of vaulted our hockey program to another level, to be able to, like I said, provide those quality athletic experiences for our guys.
Yeah, Steve Wiersma, that's a blast for the past for me. I remember calling some of his games as a student. He had a lot of speed up there on the flanks. Always would sneak in and score you a goal. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was him and Vini, Mark Veenstra, another Ontario boy. We had some good hockey players back then. Yeah. And we were big and tough. Played the game the right way at that time. The game has changed dramatically since then.
Yeah.
We had some rock'em sock'em affairs with Ferris State back in the day, and as a matter of fact, I still see some of those Ferris State guys in and around the rink here, and they always remember the games that we had here at the old Jolly Roger back then.
Sure. So the program then ended up making a big jump up in the early 2000s, and actually kind of in between, you took a little break. Maybe you can talk about it, just, your coach and your sons. And one of the key pieces of that 2004 national championship team at the ACHA D3 level, Max Siplinga, was an individual that actually kind of grew up with your son, was on soccer teams and hockey teams and all that type of thing. He was a real key piece. Nick Verkyle is another guy that was kind of a 1-2 punch. A lot of great players that I mentioned earlier when we were doing the history. Just how did that group kind of come together there in the early 2000s? How did you build and then come together to win that national title down in Arizona?
Yeah, there was I had been coaching at Grand Rapids Christian, and then abruptly the current Calvin coach left, I believe, in August, and I had stepped away. I actually was going to take a break from coaching for that 1 year, and then Brett Verkijk gave me a call and said, "Hey, Mike, we can't. We need a coach." So I said, "Okay," and I guess the rest is history since then. My anticipated break didn't happen, and so I've been back at Calvin ever since. And I really enjoy coaching the men that we have in the college program here. And it was a good group. So we had a nucleus to work from, and then having Max and a lot of the guys that I coached at Grand Rapids Christian, David Virtanen, the DeCorn family, and to name just a few, but we really had another good group there of student athletes that really performed well. And I believe that year that we won it, we went 29-1.
Yeah.
And that's I think that still is our all-time record for wins in a season, other than, and I think we tied it back in 17, I believe, 2017. But yeah, the special group for sure. They really helped lay the foundation to where we are today.
Yeah, you ended up winning 4 games in that national tournament, actually 2 in one day. I think that was the round of 16 and the quarters. And that semifinal game, that seemed to be the one in my mind that was the real big one, in that you had to knock off the host school, Arizona State, who was ranked quite highly along with yourself, and you had to beat them pretty much on their own ice. That was a pretty key win, wasn't it?
It was. I consider that to be our best game of the year that season. The guys really rose to that challenge. Arizona State was a good team. Well coached, and to go and they were actually co-hosts with the ACHA for that national tournament. So to go into their facility and really play as well as we did was really special. We both teams kind of knew that on the other side of it, there's good teams there, but we kind of both kind of figured out that that was possibly the championship game in that semifinal between the two of us.
So just giving a quick shout out to Max Siplinga because of his impact with hockey, and that's in the business world. And he is the owner of Howie's Hockey Tape, which is not just a local business anymore. Maybe you could explain how that's really expanded into the greater hockey world.
Yeah, so Max basically started that company with his dad, Harry, and when Max was a senior in high school, into his freshman year at Calvin, and it really just took off for them to the point now where I believe they supplied tape to half of the NHL teams, a lot of the NCAA D1 programs, a ton of AHL teams as well. And these all over. They have a corporate office in Burlington, Ontario. So they have a massive presence in Canada as well as here in the United States. And it's kind of a rags to riches story, so to speak, in that Max took the ball with that, and being the competitive guy that he is, I knew he would be successful at that because Max is extremely competitive and extremely hardworking individual.
Yeah. So moving a little bit more into the current era here, 2015, 16, and then 17, the last years where you were just one team. You had a lot of talent, went all the way to the national title game again, ended up losing to crosstown rival Aquinas College, located only about 3-4 miles away from the Calvin campus, and played that one, if I remember, out of state. Wasn't it down in Indiana or Ohio?
It was in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
It was at the Blue Jackets practice facility.
Sure. A lot of talent though with that group that built toward that. What do you remember about those teams, in the 2015, 16, 17 era?
Well, that was another platform for us too, in that we really the Cameron Bells, the Heisinger brothers, and Austin Heisinger here's coaching in our program, and Frank Mareschi was a part of that team, was also coaching in the program here. But Jordan Duncan and Ryan Racanelli and Alex Gross and Austin Cott, and oh man, I can keep going. We had a pretty talented group there. David Swears and Ben Brower, and I could go on and on. Ryan Betts. I mean, a number of Grand Rapids Christian High kids involved with that group as well. We just really that was another special time for us, in that they really grew together as a group, and that was the year that the ACHA, in the previous year or two prior to that last season, and at the D3 level, the ACHA asked us to move up to the D1 level because of the type of program that we've been able to build, and also the fact that we were the D3 level wasn't as competitive for us as it needed to be from at that point as well. So the ACHA really encouraged us to move up.
So talk a little bit about that moving up to D1 and then still retaining a Division III team. So you basically kind of morph or split, so to speak, into two programs. It took a lot of your experienced people with you to the D1 team, which really ended up having a solid first year as far as first years in a division goes. And then the D3 kind of rebooting a little bit with, you bring in a head coach for that program and just trying to get some new fresh players in there. What was that transition like, and how has it continued to evolve here over the last 4 years?
Well, it's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
First and foremost. So now we roughly have anywhere from 50 to 55 guys playing hockey here each and every year. The school's been great in providing us with the facilities that we need to run a quality program. The player transition was a difficult piece too, because off of that national championship finalist team, we also graduated approximately 12 guys off that team. So yeah. We knew that it was going to be a building process, and we are trending up. Our D1 team finished 16th in the country last year after year 3. I think by the time this season's finished, we're hoping to be peaking into the top 10. Our D3 team, even though the wins and losses may not necessarily reflect the growth there yet, but we're getting better each year with that, and Jim Hartline's done a wonderful job with that group. So we're continuing to build, and we're we want to make sure it's not a house of cards. We want to make sure that it's built for longevity of success, not only on the ice, but especially off the ice with our program culture. So our philosophy here is, we're two teams, but we're one program. So we try to have both teams interact as much as we possibly can. Obviously not during the COVID season, but just each and every year we do some program building exercises with both teams together. And I'm a big believer that the more people that you get to know, the better your experiences will be. So we really try to integrate both teams as much as we can.
Yeah, and a lot of people might not know this, but at your Division I level team, there are a number of guys on that team that played Canadian juniors that, were part of youth teams or, kind of the high school age teams that really send guys up into the professional pipelines. It's a pretty high level of hockey, isn't it?
Yeah, so at the NCAA level, hockey is one of the more underserved sports in terms of opportunities. Yeah. And so, and real quickly, you have NCAA D1, which has roughly 60 teams, NCAA D3, which has roughly 80 teams. And if you compare that to basketball, baseball, soccer, that's not a lot of opportunities. So the guys that we get at the ACHA D1 level, if those opportunities were available, a lot of our guys would be playing NCAA D1 or NCAA D2 if the numbers were the same. So yeah. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but it's so the guys that we get here, and a classic or an example of that is Jared Virtanen, who's arguably our one of the top players in the country, and his cousin Jake plays for the Vancouver Canucks, and so Jared throughout his development as a youngster has kind of rubbed elbows with some pretty noticeable names in the sport of hockey. And so a lot of our guys have played at an extremely high level coming into our school here, and what attracts them is Calvin, for sure. The academics that we have, being a Christian college, but also the level of hockey and the type of program that we run with our hockey program too. So it's definitely a combined outlook that we have from guys that are participating in our hockey program here.
So just this kind of a curious question. When I was broadcasting the games in the late 80s, early 90s, the guy kind of patrolling the ice for Calvin was Dan Heemstra, who was just a big, tall, strapping lad. His sister is an amazing softball player. Went to the World Series with our softball teams. I believe she's a doctor in Canada now. So where would Dan rank? I mean, could he play on your D1 team? I mean, I guess it's hard to compare era to era, but man, he was a big guy who could knock some heads around, and he was skilled. I don't know how much you watched him play, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Dan, we've had a number of guys throughout Calvin's hockey history that, given the same opportunities and the same level of training, and that's what's basically changed the sport is, back in the day, if you dump the puck in the corner, you go hit people, right? And that was a big part of the game, which it's still part of the game, but it's not emphasized as much as skating is now. Just as an example. So, but the guy Teddy Harris was a big time player for Calvin in the early '80s as well, and a local Grand Rapids Christian high guy he's now a principal out in Smithville Christian out in Ontario. Those guys, yes. As a matter of fact, when Ted comes back to play in our alumni games, I always tell him he's got another year of eligibility left, and would love to have him suit up again. But yeah, the top players over the years at Calvin could play at the ACHA D1 level for sure, provided having the same ability and the same opportunity to train such as guys have today, for sure. Because it comes down, in my opinion, it comes down to athleticism at that point, and how much opportunity do you have to be able to train as a hockey player.
Sure. I know we've chatted a little bit about this, but what are your thoughts on having perhaps outdoor hockey at Calvin sometime? I'm not sure who the opponent would necessarily be, but it sounds like, maybe if you could pay Coach Souders a little rental fee for a soccer field. it could be quite an event, couldn't it?
Well, we probably need Coach Emily involved with that decision too,
Yeah,
right?
that
So,
too.
but yeah, no, I think it would be, in hockey, growing up, you go to the local pond or quarry or even outdoor rinks in Canada. Growing up, each school puts up an outdoor rink, and so just to go there on a Saturday, put your skates on and skate around and play shinny hockey, what we refer to as pickup hockey here. It'd be 40 guys on one puck, and that's what it would look like sometimes. So it's a outdoor games, and hockey really kind of brings the essence of the sport back to the individual. So if we can somehow pull that off, I think it'd be a huge event. I think that you would have other hockey associations and or teams at all various levels that would like to be able to have that opportunity to participate on the soccer field too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a dream to be able to have a game on campus at some point. And yeah, who knows what the timeline on that is, but I'm hopeful before I retire, Jeff, that we'll be able to have something like that happen.
Yeah, for sure. On a little bit of a lighter note, of course, I've got the Red Wings sweater on right now, and they've kind of fallen on hard times after a lengthy run of postseason appearances and some Stanley Cups. But I know that you're a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and I think it's since 1967 that they have not been able to sip Lord Stanley's Cup there, and they've got a real exciting team. Austin Matthews is kind of the one of the stars, but maybe the most noticeable star player. Are they getting closer to perhaps getting that cup there back in Toronto, one of the original 6 teams?
Well, the Toronto fans are their own worst enemies at times. The amount of pressure that it is to be a Maple Leaf and play for that organization. You've got to have the right mindset to be able to handle all of that pressure. And I do think that Austin Matthews, by the time he's all said and done with his career, barring any injuries, will be known as at least probably the greatest American goal scorer for sure. But he might even go down as the best American player ever. He's a tremendous talent, and he's extremely young, so he's got a long way to go. But his release on his shot is Ovechkin-like. His ability to play the D side of the game is really starting to grow, and you can see that from year to year. Mm-hmm. And he seems to have that mentality that nothing really shakes him. He's a big time player in big moments, and I know that there's Patrick Keenum from Chicago out there that mm-hmm. has setting some milestones. But Austin Matthews, he's big, he's durable, at least at this point in time, and I think the future is very bright for Toronto, provided they can keep him after this contract's up in about another 4 years. So,
never easy, that's for sure.
No.
Well, speaking of the future being bright, we think the future is very bright for Calvin hockey, and we've really enjoyed talking to you tonight, Mike. 2 great programs, 2 programs that provide a lot of excitement for the Calvin community, and want to thank you for leading the programs and for stopping by tonight on our coach interview. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and just a shout out to everybody at Calvin. It's been great to watch everybody work together to keep our athletes going this year during COVID, and I really want to thank Jim Timmer and Nancy Meyer and all the coaches at Calvin and all the time and effort that they put into this season, especially. It's been a true. It's been incredible. I'm missing out on some words here, but it's been truly incredible what Calvin as an institution has done to support our athletes so they can continue playing sports that they love, and we're forever grateful and thankful for that.
Absolutely. Well, once again, thank you, and we'll be looking forward to following you guys down the road, this season and in future years. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Got to ask you out the gate. We were talking a little bit off air beforehand. I feel like you see a lot of different loyalties, some with teams. So, your hockey teams or hockey bringing, and how you got to that point.
Well, I've always been a Detroit Red Wings fan just growing up. My dad got me started watching them when I was a young kid. Saw them when I Stanley Cup in 2008, so that was pretty cool. Just been the team I watched growing up. As far as favorite, yeah, I have a favorite player in particular or anything like that, though.
JV?
For me, I have two teams that I cheer for. Kind of have to. The one team, I mean, I'm from like Vancouver, and my cousin's on the team, so I'm kind of obligated to cheer for them.
Good choice.
But the team that I like always liked growing up was actually Chicago.
Let's go!
Yeah, our minor hockey team had the same colors. Like we were named like the Hawks, and just like Patrick Kane obviously was coming in the league when I started watching hockey, and just it's fun to watch.
Man, I love it. That is great stuff. Also, probably good to be a Vancouver fan. Makes Thanksgiving and Christmases a little bit easier. So, well, cool. Tell us a little, you guys, and in particular this winter, right? One of a lot of our student athletes is train match protocol. Coach did this year and what it's been like and how you guys are kind of navigating that as a group and as individuals as well.
Beginning of the year, we pretty much just practice 5 days. We still do that for practices and games. We didn't really have a timeline as to when we were going to have a game. The teams were canceling their seasons because of COVID, and just games kept on getting postponed, canceled just in general. So it's just a challenge for guys to stay motivated, just not knowing if they're going to have a game or not. But luckily they're up. Starting around January, things started picking up for us. We were able to get some games and going from there, trying to get guys going and win some games.
Sure. Love it. Jared, let me ask you, because you've been around for a couple years now, Calvin hockey, and it's something where Calvin hockey exceptionally competitive, nationally excellent. Going to a Division III national championship game just a couple years ago. Take me through what it's like to have gone from to be part of a transition from the D3 level to the D1 level. Have you guys changed how you do anything? What's the competition level been like? I obviously really excited and also disappointed to get the bid to nationals last year and unfortunately have that taken from you. But tell us a little bit about that transition. What have been some of the fun things? What have been some of the more challenging things?
So I actually came the year that we became D1. So I wasn't here at the start of or when it was D3, but just coming in, obviously we had some players that were on the team when they were a D3 team. And it was kind of nice actually because those players had a winning mentality. And it's just different when you're a team that you're used to winning. You come into the games expecting to win. And even though we were the greatest team in our first year, I think it helped having those personalities on the team to be fairly successful. We were only a few ranking spot nationals our first year.
All right. Talk to me now. You've got two teams, right? There's a lot of hockey, right? I guess if some is good, more is better. Tell me about the relationship between kind of the Coach Petrusma earlier was talking about, one program, two teams. What has that been like for you all? How do you engage with? What's it been like?
That nature, but it really to a new level. Work hard, so.
Doing and other things led you to hockey. Hockey guys in general. Hockey, has that always been the case? You kind of grew up in it. It's one of those. Hey, you eventually found you're trying to shut everything else out, and now it's all hockey. I'd be curious.
I can started. I mean, for me, my whole family's like played hockey. My cousins played hockey. Skating when I was 4. And then kind of didn't really play any other sports. I mean, the one other sport I got into was roller hockey, so I don't really know if that's. But yeah, it's been pretty much my whole life, just winter, spring, summer. That's
Fair enough. D, what about you?
In the same boat as Jared. I 4 or 5 on skates and been playing since then. I tried basketball summer season when I was 9 years old. Absolutely hated it. Stuck with it ever since. So
Yeah, you're consistent, right? The perception is the reality. So, answer me this, kind of great. I talk with our guys, and I think one of the things that's been really cool for all of us in sport, especially over the last 10 years, is like active sport, right? Even tonight, Hockey Night in America, because of the NBC Sport Network, and kind of promoting hockey and really bringing that certainly to the States. As what are maybe players that you've not just been professionally or whatever, or maybe even today, guys watching, whether you be a fan of them or not, but really guys in the NHL that you respect, or you try and, I don't want to say maybe model.
I mean, if we're talking about players that like we've been watching and then kind of just growing up, obviously I touched on a little bit, like Chicago is my favorite team because, I mean, I love it. So like I'm really similar player because he's kind of small, shifty, but where they're like really smooth, like they're fun to watch. Like players like him, like just those players that are really smooth, and the players that I had bring me to watch actual hockey games.
So I'm kind of in a different position than just because I'm a goalie. So I wanted to watch goalies growing up and see which ones are. Saw a lot of different styles kind of developed from like the early 2000s into era for hockey from the stand-up butterfly style play. And one of the goalies I always thought was really awesome to watch was Carey Price. I love how he moves when he's in net and just makes saves look effortless. Also like to watch Holt, also smooth and crisp, just like Price. Them, but I'd say my style is probably a combination of both athletic and trying to move smooth. So
That was always like, yeah.
Question. I want these fellas. So
You're
done,
you're in.
fellas. I'm like I said, I'm a AA guy too, right? And I know you guys AA, although schools have been trying. Calvin, I know you guys have rivalries with different ones. It's a juggernaut. In D1 hockey, I mean, I think they're ranked number 1 again, probably, or
number 2 right now.
Number 2. So, like, in their ice arena for different MIAA AD meetings and different stuff like that. What's that atmosphere like? I mean, they got the whole thing rolling down there, and I watched their they have a NCAA legit. I mean, they're big. What do we close that gap a little bit? And we played with them, I know, but they were on our side down there. Either one.
I can start it off. Just starting with like the atmosphere, pretty crazy. They have a bar above.
Go Adrian.
So,
Go Bulldogs.
So fun to yelling at you, like right above you.
Don't play them on special.
Yeah, they got specials for those games. So that makes it pretty fun. And then just when it comes to maybe, I think we've done a pretty good job just in general on just better and better players and coming together. I think one thing that I'm not too sure, but because like that NCAA team, and those players might hope to jump up to the next level. So their ACHA D1 team, sub NCAA D3 team.
Yeah. Darin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Jared. They're high enough caliber where they could play Division One NCAA, which has definitely helped them recruit more players that are good enough to play at the NCAA D3 level, but are playing for their ACHA cap. Though, like if you look at it, so it was my sophomore year 2 years ago, we took them into overtime, and he got here at Calvin at the C Club Awards.
Yeah.
And then
He
last
stood on
year,
his head, right?
Oh yeah, he I think it was like 72 out of 74 shots, something. But and then last year we lost them. I believe it was 5-3 in the conference championship, and they really only beat us in the first period. We were down to the second and third period. We outplayed them the rest of the game. It's just we couldn't. I think we may not necessarily have it, like we still have a good top end skill compared to them, but we have better chemistry than a lot of teams we played. We have to outwork opponents to beat them. So
I'm throwing out all my hockey terms at once. Stand on your head, grinders, hat trick. All right, I'm out. I'll wait for the 24/7. I don't know.
I got two more for you guys. Okay. Best hockey.
I mean,
yeah, that's just the miracle. Gotta say it.
You would have thought so, but I thought you had like Mighty Tap Shot as a classic.
I don't know if it's Calvin appropriate though.
Yeah.
In there, but anyway, okay. My final. So there's some context for this thing out of Miracle. So, I would fall on my face skating. It's been years since I've tried, so I've never played hockey with the guy. But greatness, and that's where we're headed. Is that my dad with Jack O'Callahan I've played golf with Jack a few times, right? I want to say to him like, "Why'd you play college hockey?" Just straight out of it. I'm not like I might get like a 4-iron to the teeth, but anyway, your rush with whether it's an NHL grade or there's some family ties in there, you could be throwing yourself under the bus. But I'll leave it to you guys.
You can go ahead, Jared.
Well, I mean, I guess other than my cousin growing up and like playing with him, for a current player, Mike's favorite player right now, Austin. We played a summer and he lived at my house. But yeah,
His coach earlier.
That's tremendous. That's the greatness I've heard.
His coach comes on earlier, says this is the greatest American. Jared starts by being like, I don't know about that. Oh, by the way, I was cooking him eggs.
Yeah.
I think just growing up and like hockey so young, you play like a lot of the players I've like played with, you see in the NHL now.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that story as Jared does, but kind of like he was saying, when you're playing like junior hockey stuff like that, you run to a lot of different people who have played hockey at really high level. Different people. I remember some of the camps I've been at, like Mesquite Lumberjacks camp when I was there. When I was trying out for different junior teams, I got to know the owner. There's been numerous, and I can't really pinpoint saying more significant over the other. I guess one memory I have is when I was younger. and I lived in Texas, I went to church with Mike Bertani. So, decent player to know personally.
Yeah, good play for the Stars. Man, I can no doubt behind that guy. Cool, awesome. We'll hand it over to you 24/7. Not sure that comes into play in terms of a shot clock hockey wise, but I'll have you take it away.
All right. Hey, Coach Souders and fellas, again, I appreciate you coming on. I shout out to our sponsor here. This segment is brought to you by LMCU has more ways for your money to earn even more. Choose CDs, health savings accounts, nationally recognized credit cards, and the checking account. Money Magazine calls checking account.
Jim, before you go on, my personal apology off the segment with Lake Michigan Credit Union. For those listening, we do personally bank with Lake Michigan Credit Union. So just, a little.
All right, Joe, almost done here. I know you're anxious to get back to your studying. That's all hockey players do on a Monday. So I do 7 questions, short answer. We kind of compare your answers against some of the other athletes. And we try to make a few hockey specific ones for you guys. So I'll ask a question. We'll go Darin and then Jared. You answer the question first. First thing that comes to your mind, all right?
Okay.
All right, here we go. Favorite color?
Am I answering the same question or the?
Yes.
Green.
Green. Well, still looking for our first maroon. That's all right. All right. Early morning practice or practice? You guys do a lot.
Late night practice.
Yeah.
Those early mornings kill you.
We've had enough of those first 3 years.
All right. Hey, what's the favorite course you've taken at Calvin? That's class. If you
Supply Chain 301.
Supply Chain 301.
I'd probably say business law.
Oh, hey, both. I'm sure those profs would love to. Glad to hear that if they listen to the podcast. All right. So this is a yes or no question. Outdoor hockey, yes or no, like in the NHL?
Yes.
All right. Both of you guys, like a lot of Calvin hockey players, a lot of them live off campus. They kind of start their journey there very quickly. To cook. What is your meal that you could cook, Darin, that you would invite somebody over for?
Steak.
Off the grill?
Yeah.
All right. Jared?
If it's inviting someone over, I might just go with or something and keep it safe.
I'm gonna tweet out to Austin Matthews and say, "How is Jared's spaghetti?"
You're more of a go. Kind of people at that time.
That's my next one, right? Go to take home restaurant.
Texas Roadhouse.
Oh wow, you're a potatoes guy, Darin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, Jared,
I mean,
for me.
Probably going to Chick-fil-A any chance I get.
Oh yeah.
There we go. I'm not. Well, that's a debate for another day. I got some feelings. Chick-fil-A, good. Maybe a slight. Final question again. Thank you. We really appreciate it. So, I've been in your locker room a number of times. Do you have the smell? Like, are you kind of kidding when you say I don't even smell it, or do you smell it when you walk in there?
I can smell it.
Coach Souders,
we keep it clean. We keep it clean.
It's picked up. Like, eyes tear up when I go. So I figure like it smells like wins and hard work.
Yeah, I think if we ever smell anything, we think it's like the trash or like the drains are.
No, it actually is. Your close and clogged drains. It is like this.
I don't think we smell the gear anymore.
All right.
No.
Hey, good. Hey, good luck the rest of the way on the podcast tonight. Please wish your teammate will be out. It's really tough to take up a spot in the arena when we only have limited spots, but we're watching for cheering you on it, and it's a labor of love, you guys, every Monday, Wednesday. So we'll keep rolling them out there. So again, thank you very much, and good night, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
All right. Well, what a great night on the podcast, the Roundtable, episode 9. It was hockey on the podcast tonight. Mike Petrusma, Jared Virtanen, and Darin Fox off from D1 Hockey. We kind of took a trip down memory lane. Got to know the guys a little bit, some great stories, some great connections that our coaches have with some really influential hockey people. And Jeff, again, a great review of where hockey's been and what it means to Calvin. I love the Mike Petrusma story. And so I'm going to lead off final thoughts. We'll go to you, Ryan, and you, Jeff, and then I'll close it up. So my final thought is this. What a great story about Mike Petrusma and his dad taking 8 summers to finish his degree, fighting for the Netherlands in World War II. And, there's a lot of times where I think, man, Mike is dedicated to Calvin. And, I never took time to know the backstory, but man, what a great what a great story. In that's why he's so dedicated to it. That's why he believes in the product, and he's out there recruiting. He's probably on a recruiting call right now. So I thought that was one of the best parts of the show. Ryan?
I just, we do this now every other week or so, and every time we do it, I'm just encouraged by student athlete interviews. It's funny. I've seen Darin and Jared every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those guys come in for COVID testing. That's the first time I've seen their nose and mouth all year, right? They come in with masks, and it's like they're excited about what they're doing, and you can tell there's some challenges that have been presented to those guys, but they're passionate, not just about hockey, but Calvin hockey, right? And they talk about what they're building with D3 and as D1 members and upperclassmen now, and in some ways also really appreciative of where the program has come from. So just really encouraged to talk to student athletes. I think that we can lose a lot of things in the day-to-day. So to interact with student athletes is just really encouraging, and certainly wish those guys, as well as athletes still competing this remainder of winter and spring, nothing but the best, and excited to see more Calvin athletes out there.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think Mike talked a little bit about, how hockey is such a national passion for Canada, of which he's a citizen. And, we talked a little bit about it with the student athlete interviews, but you're talking about Miracle. And I just think back to the Miracle on Ice and how that was such a moment that put hockey kind of stamped into the United States. Maybe it's not where American football is, for instance, or whatnot. But, Jim and I were respectively 10 and 12 years old, and I can specifically remember that run. That was one of my first vivid sports memories. And, we had a little mini Olympics that our 4th grade put on at school. So we had like a little Olympics in the gym, and we were part of countries and all that kind of thing. So you got in the Olympic spirit, and, the U.S. was hosting an Olympics, and Eric Heiden won 5 gold medals in speed skating, but the hockey team doing what they did. And I can remember that first game, my mom had the TV on, they ended up tying Sweden on a goal in the last few seconds. And that just kind of kick-started that 2 weeks. And I remember the Friday, it actually was a tape delay, them showing the broadcast. And it was the late Jim McKay was kind of stoic and said, "This game has already been completed. We won't tell you the final score. But here's the presentation." I mean, you probably would have thought that they had lost that game. And, obviously went on to win 4. I just think of it because the guy who assisted the game-winning goal, Mark Pavlich, just passed away this past week. That was in the news. But, I remember the Sunday of the gold medal game. Maybe you remember it too, Jim. It was like a late Sunday morning game. So I remember going to church in the morning, going to my great aunt's house for brunch where we watched the gold medal game against Finland. And, what an amazing experience that was. And it really kind of brought, hockey into my heart as a young guy. And, one of the interesting things, I got my Red Wings sweater on tonight. One of the members of that Soviet team that lost in the gold medal game, in the semifinal game, the Miracle on Ice, was Slava Fetisov, who went on to become one of the Russian five for the Red Wings 1997 Stanley Cup championship winning team. And I've often thought about that. Back then they were the hated Soviet Union, the communist wall and all that kind of thing. And then here you are, years later, and they become one of us. It just shows you, that we're all part of humanity. And, it's really a great melting pot of humanity that we have to keep in mind.
To that point, Jeff, as the great philosopher Rocky Balboa once said, if I can change and you can.
And that was in the Soviet Union too.
Yeah, there you go.
On Christmas Day.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have now gone full circle. We're back to Rocky Balboa. And guys, you know what? In a crazy year, doing this every 2.5 or 2 weeks gives me enough energy to get to the next podcast. So again, I appreciate the work you all put into it. Christian back in the studio, and everybody. One of these days, we're all going to get together and do this live with our new mixer, but we're going to hold that off. So with that, I'm going to bid everyone adieu, and have a great night, everybody. And we'll see Night Nation in a couple weeks. Bye-bye.